Welcome to our live youth work conversation. I think this week we're on week 4, and this week is all about social media, a topic that we're probably all really passionate about or want to find out more. So we're going to introduce everyone. Lindsay, do you want to start?
Yes, so I'm Lindsay. I work with Ben at Blackburn Diocese, and I sort of manage our social media accounts and the website and various other different things like that, and create a lot of our resources that we put out there as well.
Fantastic. And Jodie, hi. Do you want to introduce yourself?
Yeah, cool. I'm Jodie. I'm 19 years old. I live in Chorley, but I go to Life Church Lancashire in Burnley. I share like a lot of my own faith on social media, and I've also helped Ben and Lindsay out with a few things they do.
Awesome. And Ben, do you want to introduce yourself in case people don't know who you are?
Why not? Why not? I'm Ben. I'm the youth advisor for Blackburn Diocese. I get to work with Lindsay a lot and get to work with Jodie a little bit, and that's always very exciting, especially when it's around this topic of social media. So yeah, it's good.
Awesome. And I'm Dawn. I'm part of the Children, Families and Young People's team in the Leeds Diocese. So we're going to start just in prayer, just a quick time of prayer before we move into the topic. So Lord, we thank you for today. Thank you for the opportunity to come together and share in a conversation. Lord, please guide our conversations. Give us your wisdom and insight as we start to talk about these topics. Lord, help us to find real, authentic ways to connect with young people and help us shine your light out to others around us. Thank you that we are free to share the good news over social media. Give us fresh boldness to speak out your love to the world around us. Amen.
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 Amen. Okay. As has been the theme, we're going to start with a silly, thought-provoking question. This silly and thought-provoking can be in the same sentence. So if you could start a blog, what would you blog about? I can go to anybody.
Go on, I'll go first. Well, I used to have a blog, so I have blogged before, and that's because I've got a son, and he was born with an upper limb difference, so he doesn't have a left hand. So I had a blog where I just wrote about, as a parent, like how I was coming, like how my mind was working with that and the experiences that we were coming across and the things that he was able to do. But after a while, I just was typing the same thing, which was just, he can do everything. So I kind of just, I'm just saying the same thing over and over again. But if I was to do one, like, again, I love kind of altering things, and like, I'm a very much like do a men person. So I think I'd probably do something along that, like, here's my project, here's what it now looks like. I like little bits, maybe, don't know.
I like that.
Boring, actually.
No, I like that, but I don't like the hard work in the middle bit. I like, here's something old, here's something new. Woohoo! I like that. Anybody else? Would anyone else write a blog? What would you write about?
I used to have a blog as well. I used to like share my faith through it. If I was to like do a different one, based on like fashion and how like a lot of the newer companies are trying to like change how like the fashion industry and like making it more like ethical and everything like that. Like even Nike itself is like changing how it all works. So probably dig into that a bit.
That's awesome. That's really good. What about you, Ben? Would you write a blog?
Food and sport, I think. I think I'd pair sporting events with foods. That would be the way. Like the FA Cup final with cheesecake, or like, I don't know. You know how like the Super Bowl, there's always wings. There's always like, it's some specific things. I think I'd just start making British sport match up, and I'd give Wimbledon a twist. This whole like strawberries and cream thing's been around for too long, so that would be where I'd go, I think.
I like that.
All nice and deep.
So like the girls, I have blogged, and I do blog. So I've been a solo parent for the last 12 years. So my blog is all about being a solo parent with faith and how you can manage to do that. So that's my blog. So there we go. Crazy question asked. So I'm going to hand over to Ben to lead the conversation today.
I love how you wheedled in a plug there for your own blog.
Absolutely. It is actually #SoloParentFaithAdventure.
Oh, there we go. We went there. Good work. All right, so today we're chatting social media, and so we kind of wanted to start off, and we're going to go on a bit of a journey. Like if you've been with us for the last couple of weeks, we've asked a number of questions, and so that hopefully guides our conversation. If you've got questions that you want to ask, or you want to kind of throw something into the mix, there's a couple of guys that are listening that are on the comments, and they'll send them through to us, so we can ask your questions, make your comments, and kind of reflect that into the conversation. But the first question, and I'm going to read it because it's a bit of a mouthful, because this is the way I wrote the question, because I'm a muppet. But how can social media be used in this time, in this lockdown period, by youth leaders, both to further discipleship and to be missional to young people? So particularly think about lockdown, and obviously things are starting to ease, but actually what have we seen? Maybe some of the good things, maybe some of the things thoughts we've had, maybe there's sort of encouragements for people to go, yeah, actually I could do that. So yeah, I'm going to throw that. Do you know what? I'm not going to be mean to Jodie right now. I'm going to throw that to Linz first, and then mainly because Jodie actually messaged me the other day. I'm not a youth leader, so I don't know how but so Linz, off you go, mate.
Smooth handover. Well, what I love about social media is that it's so relational, and I absolutely love, when I was a youth worker, I just loved doing relational youth work and actually getting to know the young people. And my favourite also was even just going off to do detached and going to where the young people were and just communicating with them and find out about their lives. And what's been brilliant, what I've loved to see, is how people have really grasped that during lockdown, and to see some of these accounts that have gone from either non-existent, or they were doing little dribs and drabs, to being like full on kind of active, that even when I'm on, and they're not even my youth group, I'm excited to go, oh, I wonder what they've been posting today. And it's nice that there's people like that around and doing it. I know in our days we've got St Cuthbert's over in Fulwood. They're just brilliant, doing a phenomenal job over there. But I think it's when you've seen people who have been, they're just showing up, they're just being there, they're being consistent, they're being authentic, and they're just continuing to share their faith, whether that's good days, bad days, they're there. And I love it. Like, people seem to be like joining up together as well. So there's a lot of people who seem to be sharing other people's content. So you're creating this beautiful community, and just also it means you're getting to show your young people the different variety of what's out there. And it's just, I don't know, I love it. I get excited every time I go on, and I'm not normally like in my personal life, I'm not massive on social media, but I'm excited to go on and sort of see what is going on and what's going to be out there. I'm waffling now. I'm doing a Ben waffle.
Wow.
It has been a great way to connect, hasn't it? I think especially during this season, people have craved that connection with other people, and this has just been a great way to find different connections with different people. I love social media. I'm quite active, but like you, love jumping on and seeing what other people are doing as well. It's great.
I've been thinking of like that as well. It's like for the young people as well, it's like that familiar, I can't say the word, but like seeing people's faces that they know on like social media, not just the friends, but actually like they can still be connected through social media and stuff. And that's like a really good way.
Yeah. It allows you to see the world still going on, doesn't it, really? That there's still people existing, doing things in life. It's nice.
I think social media offers something totally different as well. And it's funny that kind of the conversation that happened last week was on offline youth work. So it was that thought of kind of actually, how do we connect with young people when they're not connecting with us? Say now feels like the traditional youth work model in lockdown is let's go on Zoom. But actually Zoom doesn't suit everyone. And actually social media gets to jump in that gap, doesn't it? That says like a lot of young people are on social media. I'm not saying not carpet kind of like, I'm not sweeping the lot and going, actually everyone is, but a lot of people are. But that means that between what you might be doing on a Sunday or a midweek group, if young people aren't connecting, there's things you can post that, whether it's sharing with what someone else has put or sharing a video that you love or something like that, that just kind of actually allows to feed young people. If you think it as a kind of a youth leader, kind of actually gives them something to think about or reflect on, or something a bit different, that actually just keeps that connection, even though they may not be showing up and sitting facing you like we are now, kind of just four boxes on a screen.
Make them laugh, like the way who they're obviously mainly YouTubers, but they've also got an Instagram account, did this. It was nothing to do with faith. They just did a video that was one the guy of the two that do it, the guy's having a conversation with Hugh Jackman and his wife, and they just cut it in such a way that it looks like they're genuinely having a Zoom conversation with you. And it's just so, well, I find it funny, but you know, things like that you can share, and it's nothing to do with faith or anything, but it's just like you'd have a little bit of banter with your young people. You've got that space to be able to do that there as well by sharing and socializing.
Yeah, definitely. So I've got 3 children. 2 are massively active on social media in their own little ways, but 1 completely won't go anywhere near it at all. But if we find a little funny video or something that we've really engaged with, we'll show it him, and he'll love that side of it. He'll love that kind of laughter and the connection, but doesn't want to be seen on social media and have the kind of, you know, the intenseness of being out there. But I love social media. I would love to see that video. That's really cool.
I see that. It's good.
Yeah. Awesome.
Just sort of flipping the conversation. So we talked a little bit about, kind of touched on discipleship, keeping connection, that kind of element of community. I'm kind of keeping an eye on the comments as we go, even though someone else is. We mentioned right at the top of it is like, how do we use social media sort of missionally? And I realize that Jodie's already said, I use social media to share my faith. Like, what does that kind of look like? So can youth leaders do that? Is that better done from young people? We're destroying all the questions I've written here all in one hit, but like, what does that kind of look like? And what's that look like for you, I guess, is the big question. So
I'd say as well with like this like missional idea, it's like when we're sharing our faith with people in like person, it's different for everyone. So it's like, say the post that I'll share my faith with online, it can look different in many ways. It could be like a selfie and then the caption could be like a Bible verse, or like just an encouragement, or it could be like a graphic I make. And so I think as well, it's like there's many different ways to do it, as long as it's like centered around like truth and like bringing light to people. And that's like the main thing, and just like keeping it fun and like authentic who you are and how it will like reach people.
Yeah. Oh, amazing. So, I mean, one of the things, and this is probably not this isn't something that we've probably chatted a lot about, and it'll probably come up in time. But actually, one of the things that was come up for Lindsay and I is particularly for Lindsay, I keep taking semi-credit for this, it's totally Lindsay. But while we've developed a digital strategy, one of the big things for us is that kind of keeping authenticity in what we do online. So it's like, actually, I think there's too much of a pressure sometimes, or there has been a world in which people go online, they can be very different to who they are in real life, and they use it. But actually, one of the things for young people with social media is if we're going to share our faith, is it's sharing the faith that we live out. It's not kind of like, it matches up, and I think that's really key. And that's kind of, I mean, the fact you said authenticity straight out is massive, that actually we want it to be our faith being shared with young people. And actually, in some ways, it's a semi battle, isn't it? Because you kind of go, what are people going to like? What are people going to, what might get shared? What might be all this? Like we have these conversations regularly in our office saying, we're going to do, what about, man, we're a bit disappointed by that. But then you actually think to yourself, if it just touches the lives of 1 or 2 people, that post, and it speaks into their situation, then that's massive. And in some ways that can be direct and indirect through social media, because the post can go far and wide, and it's getting your head around. It sounds weird, but the words of algorithms and hashtags and stuff like that, like, actually mean that what you're posting can go out and be connected with in such a different way, which you wouldn't do if you were stood on a street corner sharing your faith. You might meet a few people, but actually there's kind of a realm where it can go to different places to where it's maybe needed as well. So that's exciting. What are some of the good, we've talked about a few little bits of good practice. Where are some of the things that we've seen that have been really good, maybe encouraged us, inspired us during lockdown? What are those? This is our chance to give people a shout out, really, in some ways. So everyone get their phone out, have a scroll. But kind of what is it? Where is it that you've, who have you been sharing? Who have you been liking? And where are those? Yeah, what are the good practices you've seen? I actually am opening my phone now, so.
Obviously I talked about The Way, they've been cool. I like them. Really love watching Camberley FC, YFC on Instagram, who have now ventured onto TikTok, which is nice because we've been on TikTok for a little while, well, quite a while actually, since January, and it's been nice during the lockdown to have more people venturing on. It's like, hi friends. And so they're just really good. They've got a different model to what we've gone for, and it's just really nice to kind of see their model in action and to see how they do their thing, and just how, I mean, they do relational youth work online, and I find their stuff exciting. So even though sometimes they're talking about things that are nothing to do with us because we live nowhere near them, just to kind of just see it and learn from that I love their stuff.
Something I was thinking about was like the youth group that my church has called The Noise, the Noise Youth. Something that's like caught my eye a lot is like the consistency like we've been having, and like the creativity and the core message being like the like good news, and like Jesus being like the light and bringing that into that space. But it's about like how can we show that in different ways than just words and stuff, and like just even just showing it through just normal chats like we're doing now, sort of thing.
Mine's actually a youth worker in a different diocese, in Sheffield Diocese. Her name is Hannah. She has a church as a youth worker in a church in Doncaster. And again, she's very consistent, just like you said, Jodie, with the devotions that she does. I think she's even tried online mentoring as well, which has been great. But also thinking about the conversation last week, always remembers those that don't connect online through social media or Zoom or whatever, and make sure that she still connects to those people through handwritten letters. Can you remember those? How cool. But it is the consistency and definitely the authenticity. I think to be authentic is so important. I think back to when I was a child, and actually being authentic was so important. When you saw those people on the high street Monday to Saturday, were they the same as the people that you saw in church on a Sunday? And being authentic is so important, not just using social media as this kind of like gleaming thing, this person that we would like to be, but actually who are we and how can we kind of, show everyone who God is through us.
Yeah, on like things like Instagram, it's all about being pretty. It's easy to kind of think, right, I've got to put a pretty version of myself up there, and the insecurities that come with it, especially because everything's now monitored in likes and reach and all the, suddenly everything's in a figure. But actually the core of it is that it is that authenticity, and it's just remembering, isn't it, that it's just letting God do his work through you and just doing that regardless of the numbers, because you just got to go and do it. It always reminds me when I was because the authenticity is true even face to face, and I remember when I used to be a youth worker at churches, and people coming up to asking volunteers, and they'd say, no, I'm too old for youth work, I can't, the young people aren't going to connect with me. You just try and say, well, just be yourself. And then I once met this we used to have a volunteer, and he was in his 90s, and he'd only be able to come like once every 2 weeks, sometimes every 3 weeks, because he'd be really, really tired, and he'd need that kind of break. And he'd just turn up and he'd just be him. And I remember saying to I was asking him questions like, how are you doing, and why do you come and do this? And he just said, I just love being there for the young people. I just want to be there. I just want to turn up and just be that consistent person in their life, and just be there for him. And I'm just me. I know I'm not going to be cool. I can't be cool, but I'm just me. And that authenticity, that care, that genuine love that he had, just to be that witness and be there for these young people, that's what drew them to him, and got them to connect far more with somebody who was younger and trying to be cool and just wasn't being themselves. And because everyone can tell, you can tell if someone's not quite being them. And you really can tell even more when it's online. I think it's true face to face, it's true in real life. Just, you know, be yourself.
It can be a really scary thing, can't it, to be authentic online and to not chase the likes, to just be like, okay, this is me, this is who I actually really am. That's a really brave, it can be a really brave thing. Definitely.
Even me, you know, my on my personal Instagram account, I've only just started putting pictures of my face on, because I just didn't like it. I didn't like the idea that my face would be there. So I'd take pictures of like water droplets, or, you know, something like, you genuinely scroll through and it's just like, oh, it's a leaf. It's another leaf. And yet more leaves. Just because that's more comfortable than like me. So to just be like, I'm putting me out there can be quite hard sometimes.
Yeah, definitely.
Cool. I'm going to move us on slightly, but this will all link back because there's a little bit of a journey we're going on. But so one of the things that we've seen a lot of in social media, particularly before lockdown, but maybe equally so much sort of kind of almost still within lockdown, especially as things are online. There is a tendency for church life, maybe not youth group life, but church life is for social media to be a kind of an advertising. It's almost like an online billboard. How do we get beyond that? And we've kind of strayed a little bit into this, but some of this is kind of the practicalities of like, what are some of the steps that people might want to consider if they're saying, actually, we want to go beyond just selling what we do. Like an advert once in a blue moon that says, hey, we're here on a Sunday is lovely, but actually it's not connecting with people. And what we've talked about so far is connecting with people. And there's bits we haven't touched on. I've got my phone's going like the clappers as Graham sends me stuff through. But actually, what's that step? How are we intentional about, and how do we encourage churches to be intentional, or youth leaders to be intentional with what they do, without it feeling like they're hunting for likes, without them hunting to be cool? Like, what are some of the things that they can just think through, and what maybe some of the strategy, what would be some of the things you go, that would be helpful?
Right, I'll stop mocking you. I keep getting called, he's my social media friend. Social media friend is Brady Shearer. If you've not come across Brady Shearer yet, see, Ben is laughing because he is my friend. He isn't, but if he ever watches this, I would come round for tea. It's fine. So he's great. He offers loads of free little bits. And if you're on TikTok, he offers like little 1 minute, 30-second short snippet things. And he's got loads of stuff that talk about that exact question. And he's got two things that come from that. One is, I wrote down, what is it? Know you, like you, trust you, which is one strategy. So that is that before they can trust you, they've got to like you. But before they like you, they've got to know you. And so, you know, it's fine putting your adverts out there, but if they don't know you, why would they want to come? And it's not saying you can't put adverts, or a call to action, but the steps before that, you know, if you were doing the sermon, you wouldn't just go straight in, and you're a guest speaker, for example, you wouldn't just go straight into it. You always do that little bit at the beginning where you kind of some random little story about how, I don't know, you once met a kangaroo and it changed your life. And then you'd then lead into the sermon part of it, because people need to get to know that person first before they can start to trust them and trust what they're going to say and trust the things that they're going to make. And that can kind of really, when you pause to think about it, make you think about what you're going to put out there. You know, are you putting out something that's going to allow people to get to know you? And where is that going to go? Is that going to go on your stories? Is that going to go on your walls? You know, how does that get structured? And to like you, you know, you have to sort of with both those things, you've got to let a little bit of yourself out and be vulnerable in that sense. And then the trust you will allow you to do the call to action. The other one Brady Shearer does is wide and deep. So your content can reach wide and reach deep. So your deep stuff can be your like deeper theology, for example, or just something that's got more significance to it that people want to like save for later so they can come back to. They might like it, they might bookmark it because they want to be able to reference back to it. They potentially might go and share it, but that's deep. You're making like an impact with somebody. And then wide is the stuff that has the bigger reach. So that is your things that might be a bit humorous, that's nothing to do with God, or it's nothing to do with theology. It's just something that you just makes you laugh, or just that little bit more informal stuff. And they're the things that will often be shared a lot more. And if you have a balance between the two, that's meant to be quite good. But he's got loads on there on his stuff. You can go and check him out.
You are a big fan of Brady Shearer, aren't you?
He's not too American.
It's not too American. He's all good. He's all good. Jodie, you in some ways you have a bit of a unique take on this, because I'm not speaking ill of turn here, but you're definitely sat here with 3 people over the age of 30, and you're significantly younger than us. I know, Lindsay, I'm sorry, mate. It is a stark reality, though. The way you kind of sat back, like from a young person's perspective, there's and kind of being that chunk younger, what connects with young people that goes beyond, hey, we've got this lovely shiny thing that you could come to or you can engage with? And a question that's kind of come back, and I'll hit back around to this, is one question that's come back is, are young people anxious to be, and kind of, are they desperate to be authentic? So is there a keenness for young people to be authentic online? And obviously we've touched on the fact that we're to be authentic. What's the, kind of, I guess it kind of goes around what we've talked about, but how does that start to impact you as a young person? And
I'd say, like, from what you're saying, a lot of like young people, if you ask them about social media and what they want to post about, they'd be like, oh, I want to be like who I am. I want to be authentic and real. But then a lot of the time, like, they'll be following these like social media influencers who have like high followings, these perfect Instagram feeds. So then they don't have that like example in their life to then go out and do it. So then I guess that's also like why I do what I do. So then to hopefully encourage other people to do the same. So I say, like, I know, like, if you can, from like your social media pages, your youth groups and stuff like that, portray that like authenticness, and then like they see that, and then they might be also encouraged to do the same thing.
So it's setting a bit of an example.
Yeah.
Amazing. In terms of connecting with, say, obviously you mentioned The Noise. I know the guys at The Noise. They do a lot on social media. There's a lot of stuff that goes on. But so in terms of this idea that churches might just advertise a little bit, how do we get beyond that? Like, what actually connects with young people, what connects with humans on a human level, but particularly for young people? Like, how do we get beyond that advertising? And Lindsay's talked about the Brady Shearer stuff that's like about connection. What are some of the things that have stuck out for you that you've gone, actually, yeah, that's so different, and I love like that I want to kind of connect with a bit more?
I'd say maybe like just looking outside at the world around you and what's going on, because like young people also want to talk about like these issues and everything. So it's just about like even just asking them questions on like, what do you think of something? Like, speak to them like directly, and then bring that onto your social media to then talk about it, like that, like wide range sort of thing.
Okay. And would you use social media as a questioning platform? I say that as in kind of as if I'm interviewing you now. But it's really kind of not trying to be that intense about it, but kind of actually, would you put questions up on social media, or would you actually encourage people to do a bit of background, connect with the young people you know, to then kind of get beyond that? Oh, I have a feeling she's frozen.
Am I still on? Can you hear me?
You are. You're there.
Cool.
You're there. You froze and you gave me a death look. It was unbelievable. But
sorry about that. I think I heard what you were saying though, and I'd say it can work both ways. Obviously, depending on what questions you're putting out there. It's like on your social media, say on Instagram, like you could do an Insta story with those question boxes and do something more fun and like get feedback that way. But if it's something more serious about like, well, like young people want to talk about this and you're just curious, maybe like go to the young people you know, and from discuss it with other, like, you work in your team, and then what to put.
Okay. It's all right. You keep freezing up on us, mate. That's all. And there's this panicked look in my eyes that happen when you do that. But that's
I'll
all.
connect with the data on my phone.
So if you were to give, so we've said the strategy. I'm really conscious that the churches, bearing in mind I'm a youth advisor, Dawn is doing a very similar role over in Leeds. So if a church comes to us and says, all right, what is my first step to getting beyond just advertising to doing that? What would be your first steps in terms of just planning that out and going, we want to connect with other people. We want to connect with people kind of maybe on a discipleship or missional level. How do we start what are those first steps to get away from just going, oh, come and visit us in just that tone? What would be your first steps, and what would you go, yeah, actually that would be the first thing I'd recommend, or the first, second, third?
Go talk to young people, probably is your first step, because, you know, let's say you decide, right, I'm going to go on Instagram because I believe that's where the young people are. Well, what if your young people are not on Instagram? You know, that's absolutely pointless. And it's very much getting, well, what's your aim? What's your purpose? What you're trying to get, not out of it, that's the wrong kind of thing, but what is the best way to communicate? You know, if you're a church that's got your young people are really into gaming, for example, then is Twitch a better place for you to go on and go and explore how to be missional on that platform? You know, it's just, you can't just go, right, I'll do this and then go for it. You first talk to young people, find out where they are. You know, if linking it back to detached youth work, if going out on the streets and I just go, do you know what, I fancy going and exploring this particular stairwell tonight because it looks good. But that's not where young people are. Your young people are actually on the common. Then you go to the common, and it's sort of, you've got to go wherever that's where you want to kind of communicate. And then just equip yourself, have a little bit of fun and play. You can have a nice little look around on social media platforms yourself, and just silently have a little look, start to find out who to follow and watch what they're doing to inspire you with different things as well. And there's also some brilliant people out there. Obviously, I've said Brady Shearer, but we've got Digital Church Toolkit, who offer lots of different training as well. And they're based in the UK. And there are things out there that you can do to kind of just build that confidence up, really, to start taking those steps. And don't put pressure on yourself. I think just start off slow if you want to start off slow. If you're like me, you need a bit of structure. And I like to plan and then not follow the plan. But then it's fine, because I have the plan if I want to go back to it. So it's like, it's fine. Yeah, I think I've answered your question.
I like that. So so obviously two of mine are on social media, and one of they're 16 and 12, the ones that are on social media. And one of my pre-requirements as a parent is I will have the app that you have, and I will silently walk alongside you just so that I can understand. And I think when you were talking about just have a play around, you can do that. It's so important to have a go, just have a go. I remember downloading Snapchat and having it on my phone forever, going, what is this thing? And then my son said, right, Mum, I'm going to give you a challenge. You have to do a Snapchat story for the next 24 hours. And like this was, because it's all kind of hidden just on my private account. No one can follow me. At 24 hours, you got to do this story. And the whole team at work kind of got involved, and just to kind of see how does it work? Let's do this in a safe environment. It's really important just to kind of walk first, growing confidence.
Yeah, that's what we do. Just sort of play around with TikTok. How does it work? Play around with certain apps as well, because we've tried to take advantage of a lot of free apps, and some of them are great and others are just a little bit fiddly to work your way around, but you get there. So like, we edit a lot of the videos on our phone on InShot, but I know there's other ones out there, and Canva has been incredible. But just having fun, you know, we found out that Canva does digital backgrounds for Zoom, so you know, just have a little bit of fun playing on some of those, and it doesn't need to go anywhere, but you get into you're familiarizing yourself with a new language, really, a new way of kind of doing things.
Amazing. Cool. I'm really conscious of time, and that we are these things always track through really fast. So this is probably a Jodie question, at least initially, and then and then we can kind of span out. But how can youth leaders, or what can youth leaders do to equip, encourage, and inspire young people to share and articulate their faith on social media? And I guess I put that in the sense of like, actually, is it about creating space for them on a different level or on a different platform or a different kind of account? Or is it, and then flip it the other way, is like, how do you encourage young people like yourself to share their faith on their own accounts? What are kind of the things that we can do? What are the ways we can inspire young people to do that?
I think like, first of all, like when you're like communicating with other young people, have I gone?
We can still hear you, I think.
Okay, you can still hear me, cool. Okay, I'll just speak and then let me know if not. So I was thinking like, when you first start that conversation with young people, for them to then go out and share their faith on social media, say just like keep it simple, and like it's not this like, it doesn't have to be this massive thing. Obviously it's scary, I'm not going to say it isn't, but it's one of those things where it's like, it doesn't have to be this like, you don't have to post like a Bible verse or something like this, but it's just about like being you. So then another thing, it's like that whole idea of what I was saying before, like leading by example. So maybe if there's someone in the youth group who is up for sharing the faith on like social media, maybe you encourage that person to do it, and then maybe the other young people will see them doing it and be like, oh, okay, that doesn't seem too hard to do, maybe I'll give it a go. So then it's like one person does it, and then you see this like reaction of like other people doing it from that thing.
Okay, cool. Sounds amazing. And does mainly because this is kind of semi asking the question that's come through, does it matter what, obviously it has to be where young people are there particular platforms that youth workers kind of actually should be sort of devoting a bit of time to staying in touch with? I'm aware that, and I say this, like TikTok is by far the biggest, most downloaded like app of the last probably 2018, 2019. In lockdown, I've seen many people downloading it, and people that I thought, oh, I didn't realize that they're on TikTok. So should there be, and how much time would you say youth leaders should actually put into kind of staying current with their platforms? Or is it actually not a big, is it not a big thing? Yeah.
I think it's like one of those things, so like a lot of youth workers, it's all about like going to where the young people are sort of thing and like reaching them. So from like my perspective on social media, I'd say like young people aren't so much on Facebook. So then maybe having like your core content on one thing, so maybe like Instagram, and then you could perhaps dive into other areas here and there like TikTok. I'm not too sure which platforms are like safe to do on like youth wise, because a lot of people are on like Snapchat, but like I'm not personally on it, so I don't know much about it. I think because like Instagram, there's so many things you can do. So it's like you have your main feed, which is like your core posts, and then you have like your Insta stories, which can be a bit more like fun and light-hearted and stuff like that.
Okay, cool. Sounds good. Yeah, I'm gonna head back to this. Dawn, Lindsay, what have you, in your experience, what have been kind of ways we can kind of encourage? Jodie has talked about kind of just small steps with young people, encouraging to take kind of one step at a time with sharing the faith. What are the things that you've seen, maybe the things you've done with your young people, with your children, maybe, Dawn? Because I realized we had a conversation the other day about this, but like actually how are we encouraging them to share their faith online or on social media, not just randomly online? Let one of you jump in.
Go on, I'll do it. I'm talking too much. I just almost like what Georgie said, like when Ben asked, like sent some of these questions over, you have almost said word for word what kind of my little notes of just things, because it is that kind of sharing, sharing your faith is such a daunting experience, and to do that face to face is daunting. To do it online where it's documented and is there for anyone to be able to kind of go back to is also equally as sort of scary. And some people are fine with it. Some people, it's not a scary thing whatsoever, in the same way it is face to face. I mean, one of my friends, their daughter is 4, and if she meets you for the first time or has forgotten that she's already met you before, will come up to you, and the first thing she'll say is, do you know Jesus? Do you know God? Let me tell you about him. And you're like, I do actually. Thank you very much. It's great. It's great. It's great. And this 4-year-old, she just wants to tell people, and some people naturally that's sort of fine, but the youth groups that I've seen doing just wonderful things is those, like with Joy saying, sharing things, sharing how other people are doing it. Because not only are you sharing, you're not just sharing a Bible verse, you're not just sharing somebody's story, you're sharing a profile, and people can click on that, and that's somebody else that they can then go and follow and start to kind of absorb that into their life and help build up their confidence as well, regardless of what that kind of that topic is about. So I'm just ticking everything that Jodie said, really.
Yeah, definitely. It can be a really scary thing, can't it? Sharing your faith. Definitely. So all 3 of my children are quite strong in their faith. So they're known as the God Squad at school. But actually, it's only the eldest that shares his faith on social media. And it is that kind of, once it's out there, it's out there for forever, isn't it? It's I guess it's really just helping young people feel really comfortable with who they are in God, and just helping them see how see with God's eyes how God sees them, that they're beautiful, that they don't need filters, whatever it is, that actually they are just made perfect in his sight. And I think the more that young people feel comfortable with who they are, then perhaps it becomes a little bit easier to share your faith journey online rather than, being a bit scared about it. I love the story of the 4-year-old. How cool is that?
Cool. I'm just sort of scanning some questions, and I'm sort of really aware that there's a few come flying through, but I think we have covered a lot of them. The last one, we've kind of looking towards the future, our last kind of structured question, and we'll obviously go wherever people sort of see this, but there's obviously been this season of lockdown where we are away from people. In some ways, we've seen some people's social media just sort of dry up because they've gone, actually, I need to internalize this, I need to process this away from the rest of the world. Other people have lived their life through their social media, and therefore have processed really out loud, particularly maybe in recent weeks. And we've got a conversation coming up on Thursday evening around the killing of George Floyd, and how that is influencing youth work, and how that can impact and sort of affect the way we do youth work. But one thing I've seen is that there's a load of people that I've seen quite silent. Suddenly in the last 2 weeks, their social media's come alive as they have explored, they have shared their own journey on racism, on anti-racism, on all those things. And I've seen that throughout this lockdown season. But I think kind of turning our thoughts to kind of youth leaders and youth groups, and encouraging faith, I guess, within our youth groups and connecting with young people. What are the things that we maybe could be thinking about as we exit lockdown? Maybe how are those things as we go back from, and you might have seen churches just really kick up a gig on, social media is really important. We can't just advertise on this, but we want to put something out there. What are maybe some of those just little things to carry forward or things to consider? I'm really conscious that we may be not the long way out of this. Like, we might be a long way before we can meet as groups, but so what are the things that we can move forward with as youth leaders, as youth groups? Going to throw that out to all of you in one hit.
Something I was thinking about is like this lockdown and what it's made churches do is that obviously now we've like kind of been forced out of the church buildings. Now we're like, what next? What do we do? And now we're all on social media. And then for young people, it's like social media is like one of the darkest places for them. So it's like really like interesting how like now the church is online, and it's like bringing that light into that dark space. So I think it's like, even as a like lockdown eases in some ways, it's about like just keeping that going, keeping that rhythm going and stuff like that. That's what came to mind for me.
Yeah, amazing. It's keeping presence there, isn't it?
Mm-hmm.
It's quite funny that you can be present on social media even if you're not got proximity. Like, you're not close physically to people, but you can be with them and connect with them. I really like that. Any other thoughts from yourselves, Lindsay or Dawn?
I have lots of thoughts. Whether I've got time to share all my thoughts.
Always.
I mean, for me, social media is a bit like, well, it's two things really. It allows you to have extra time with your young people. So, you know, if you can only meet on a Friday evening when it's face to face, actually you've got the ability to meet on a Saturday, a Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, you know, even if it's through just these one little bits of posts, it's that connection. You just got that little bit of extra time. It's extra time to share the gospel. It's extra time to have a laugh with them, extra time to play silly games, extra time just to sort of share. It's lots of extra time, and it's that I think is lovely. And the other thing is that it's like it's a window. So it's a window into what you do. You know, a lot of our youth group can happen in like a church hall, and especially in winter, curtains might be shut, and any young people passing by might not even have a clue there's even a youth group probably going on in there. And actually, to be able to, because you can tag your location in most of your things, which then can come up in people's feeds, it's an opportunity to have that window into what you do, what you stand for, what you all believe, and all of those things for those who've not yet stepped foot inside your building. So then when they do, or if they want to, it's a little bit less daunting because it's kind of familiar. One of the worst things I'm guilty of is somebody that I can see a lot on social media, and I meet them for the first time and I'm like, oh, hi. And then you're like, oh, they haven't a clue who I am. I'm just some randomer who's just been over enthusiastic with like, hi guys. But it kind of breaks down those barriers in a way of that awkward sort of first starts, which I think is it's lovely. And then throughout this whole, I mean, I've been on my own personal journey with social media and youth work. And before Christmas, I was reminded of my dissertation. So I stupidly did a dual honours degree, and both of them needed dissertations, and one of my degree arms was in media, and you could do whatever you wanted as long as you could back it up with theory. And at the time, I already knew God was calling me into youth work. So I was like, right, I'm going to do youth work. And I ended up, because I was very student, making an interactive bus station. So it looked like a bus station from the outside, but it was a bedroom on the inside, and it was all interactive and lots of other little stuff. But in all the research that I was sort of doing, then this is before social media. I mean, you had Facebook, but you could only have a university account to go on, and there was MySpace, but even that was in its dying kind of little, like, you know, it wasn't much. And I remember reading this one quote about how young people are occupying the redundant spaces of the grown-up world. And, you know, that's kind of where you wanted to go out and reach your young people when they weren't coming into your building. You would go and find those redundant adult spaces, of which adults would hate the fact that the young people were there. So there was never that kind of place just to be and explore being with your friends without that kind of, well, I'm just going to get kicked out or moved on somewhere else. And actually with social media, you can gather with your friends without necessarily being kicked out. What's funny is now we've got adults coming into this space and be like, oh, I know everything, and almost making the young people become tokenistic in like, oh, we'll just do a token young person comes into our church service, or a token this, that and the other, and they know a lot more. But it's just, I think it is exciting what you can do and how you can go forward. And it goes back to what I said at the beginning, where it's like, it is that relational youth work. And a bit like how your 15-year-old PlayStation that you can keep digging out every Friday night, so you can have those chats and, you know, build those relationships up. Social media is another tool that we've got. And actually that's just really exciting, isn't it? That we don't have to just stick with our 15-year-old PlayStation or cards from schoolwork that we can sort of dish out to have those conversations, which are all brilliant. But we've got an extra thing that we can use to communicate to the young people that we've got in our lives, and then also those that are in the community that we've not yet had chance to face meet. I'm doing a Ben waffle again.
Hey, it spreads. Two kind of questions. One is an interesting one. I think it's probably a broader conversation, but and it sort of touches on the first conversation we had on these conversations. But is engaging with church online or church youth groups through social media, do you think it's easier than it is physically sort of turning up and being physically present? And yeah, I guess that's one question that sits there that's been posed. So let's go with that first, and then we'll kick into the next one after. So yeah, is it easier to, is engaging with church online easier than being physically present?
I would say, like, from experience, like, I'm the only person in my family that goes to church, but since lockdown, I've I'd always invite my parents to come to church with me, but now that it's online and they don't have to then go to church where there's other people, they've like actually just sat down with me on a Sunday and watched it with me. So it's like actually created that opportunity for other people.
Wow. All right, I'm gonna push at this a little bit more. So what would be, and this is just, I know, don't panic. This is thought. People will chip in online, but like, what would be the steps that would make that online go to church to actually, this isn't half as daunting? How do you do the relational bit of online church so that they get to know the guys that are online, that the community that you're part of? How do you do that from a distance? Because I think that's one of the things that we're seeing is that people go, yeah, online church is great, I can kind of sit at a distance and watch it. How does, and I'm asking you a massive question here, mate, so I apologize, but like, how do we start to do that, connect the dot, and just build those relationships so that actually it isn't as daunting walking into a church and you don't feel alienated in a way that, yeah, maybe going to a supermarket now with the threat of COVID-19 everywhere, like maybe feels a little bit daunting for some people. How does that, how do we start to, and there's no right or wrong answer. I'm just kind of throwing it out there. So that's kind of back at you, Jodie. Sorry, mate.
Okay. Two things came to mind. One was like not to make it all like seem so staged and like loads of thought going into, like, you obviously have to think about what you're putting out there, but like not to overthink it and just like go with the like flow almost. So then it like seems that like real authentic thing we're talking about. And then also like just showing more of who's a part of your church online. So like just like showing those more faces instead of like just the core team, which is important to show, but then those other connections as well and stuff like that.
We did a little bit of loose research in Leeds and found that the sermons that are very often not staged, like you say, not kind of polished, but done to a camera whilst they're walking through a field, they're actually far better to connect with people. And also churches that, like you say, use the different congregation members. So a child lights a young candle in one house and then somebody else does something, and it's all kind of put together. It just kind of shows we're normal, we're a church community. I actually have a church as well that has decided that they're going to film their church, like, hey, this is whatever, St. Peter's, and this is what it looks like to come in to the church. So that it's just building up that familiarity, and that's so important, definitely.
Awesome. Sounds good to me. And I think it's one of those battles for me. I like, and I've sat here kind of quietly reading things, and listening. Lindsay's done the waffling for me today, but there's a bit of an in-joke there. I apologize to those of you watching that don't know us. But I think the battle now is that we've gone with online church kind of works, it kind of doesn't. And one of the things we were discussing last week was around kind of offline and just the reflection that some young people don't connect with face-to-face. This is weird that I describe this way, face-to-face kind of Zoom online youth work, but actually it's in different ways. So using live sort of Facebook, YouTube, Instagram live actually connects with them far better because they can engage with it and go, I can look at you, but you don't have to see me. And I think there's something really exciting for the church to get its head around when it comes to both the online world full stop, but actually when it comes to social media is going like, actually social media is, as Jodie suggested earlier, with 24-hour stories, with Instagram live, with like posts, there's so much it offers for churches to go, actually, there's something really good to connect with people here. We can be authentic. We can share who we are. We can do it in a way that's maybe not just, it doesn't feel like we're just stood on the end of a pew yelling at them going, you're going to hell. Like, it doesn't feel like we have to kind of be that kind of super in your face, but actually we can do it in a way that's really personable. And there's been a few comments just floating through about kind of just how do you build authenticity and how do you do that? And I think it's just being you at the end of the day, but it's like, but being careful not to be fake in trying too hard to be authentic, like putting up a front. And I think there's just been a couple of comments about it. I'm like, that's really important, isn't it? That we're not fake about what we do, that the authenticity that we're showing, if someone met us face to face, they get the same person, and they get the same, if they turn up at church, they're going to get the same welcome. Someone made a comment about welcomes earlier, which was like, you don't always get a very welcoming welcome at every church. Yeah, on their social media, it sounds like they're amazing and they might put this stuff out. It's like, actually, we want the two to match. At the end of the day, when we get to the end of this, we want this to be somewhere where if someone graces the door of your church and they've connected with you online, that what they find there is exactly what they've been seeing and they've been experiencing. And most of all is not that they just find a community, but they find a community that love Jesus, and that what you're there and that encounters them. I'm aware that we've been very social media today. And we have talked about encountering Jesus, but I think at the end of the day, that's what it's about, isn't it? And I know Jodie's passion, and I know all of our passion, but is about just sharing who God is and how he interacts with our lives. Just sort of being there, and actually that's got to come through both in our social media, but also when they show up with us physically in a church, in a youth group, in whatever space that looks like. Reason I'm kind of rambling is I'm kind of trying to piece this together, kind of summarize a little bit, because we're coming close to 3 o'clock. And I think, thank you so much for all of your time. Thank you for your thoughts. Thank you for what you've shared. I think there's a lot of conversation. There's a lot of ground still for the church. Youth work might be a little bit ahead because we like to be down with the kids, to be slightly cheeky and tongue in cheek. But in a world where the church probably 10, 12 years ago, when social media started to come along, everyone don't touch it, it's not good. We're in a place where we're going, actually, no, it is. And this can be a vehicle for the good news, for the gospel, for young people, for adults, all ages, to encounter who Jesus is. And I think that's really exciting. I think we're going to finish there. I think that's a good place to finish. Thank you so much for your time. Thank you to everyone who's been commenting. Keep commenting. Graham, you cheeky boy, keeps commenting really rude things about me. But let's pray, and then we'll and I'll give you a little bit of heads up as what's coming up later this week. Let's pray. Father God, I thank you for the opportunity once again to just chat with some incredible people with a real desire to see your name lifted high, Lord Jesus. That we are that as we talked about social media, that we become aware that there are so many different ways we can use it, that we need to seek to connect with people where they are. But God, most of all, we just pray that as we seek to do that, God, you are at the center of all of it. That whether we set up a YouTube account, whether we're all over Instagram, whether we venture into TikTok and Snapchat, that God, you are in the midst, that you guide what we're doing, and that God, most of all, we represent you in those places that we go. Thank you for the conversation we've had. Thank you that, when minds like this meet, that you encourage and you inspire other people. We pray for the opportunity to use social media so much better than we have been, so that we can glorify you as time goes on and as we look beyond this lockdown season. So we pray these things in Jesus' name. Amen. Boom. As I got towards, so as I mentioned earlier on, we have got a bit of a one-off, as if we've got traditions that are Tuesday at 2 o'clock is the place. This is the fourth one we've done, but Thursday at 6 p.m. we have, we've got an opportunity to chat about what is going on in our world, in the things that are going on, particularly around race, about ethnicity, about racism, and that's going to be a great conversation. We've got I'm trying to remember who's coming, but Deborah Newbold, who is a local youth worker in Cheshire, and we've got Dean Pusey, who used to be a DYO both in London, in Southwark Diocese, and then in St Albans Diocese, and they'll be joining us. And we're not totally sure who's hosting that yet, but it's going to be hopefully a really helpful, useful, good conversation that, in this season where lots of people are asking questions, lots of people are trying to learn and listen and posture themselves for how do I change the foundations of how I approach this, particularly as maybe this is where Brennan, a lot of us represent the Church of England, actually probably quite a white middle class organisation and institution. How do we start to shift the foundations of that so that actually we are anti-racist, so that we are representing everybody? And Johnny has helpfully just put in the comments that Deborah's in Stoke in Staffordshire, not from Cheshire. I think she probably want me to point that out, because Stoke and Staffordshire is very different to Cheshire. So everyone's nodding, so we've got agreement there. But yeah, it's a massively important, and I think it comes at the right time. So we wanted to make specific space for that. So that's 6 p.m. Thursday on this group, and yeah, hopefully we will see you then. But thank you again to Jodie, to Lindsay, to Dawn, and yeah, we shall catch you again soon. Take care and God bless. Bye.